Hey guys, welcome to Staying Strong with Ashley. I know this is a little late. It's just, I feel like October's just been one of those months that's just been super crazy. Every time I went to go do the video, something came up, and so I wasn't able to. So look for another one later this month just to make up for it. But I feel like something that's been on my heart is talking about PTSD. PTSD is for everybody, someone who has gone through some sort of traumatic event. And it wasn't until I was seeing a therapist a couple years ago did I get diagnosed with it. And I honestly didn't think that that was something that I could be diagnosed with. You know, we hear about it a lot with soldiers and, you know, that sort of thing. And so you're like, of course, in battle and, you know, war and that natural disaster and that sort of thing would cause that. But looking it up, I realized that PTSD is just for anyone who's experienced some big traumatic event. It literally says it's a serious condition that can develop after a person has experienced or witnessed a traumatic or terrifying event in which serious physical harm occurred or was threatened. PTSD is the lasting consequence of traumatic ordeals that cause intense fear, helplessness, or horror, such as sexual or physical assault, the unexpected death of a loved one, an accident, war, or natural disaster. And I think that's just really important to understand, like how such an event of losing a child, and let alone me losing 3 children, and you probably having multiple losses of your own, can just really trigger some things. And I know last month I said I was good, and we talked about what the fact that, like, you know, growing in a new role. And the unfortunate part of our lives now is that one time we're good and the next time we're not. So as many of you may or may not know, I was a part of a documentary called Don't Talk About the Baby. And that came out last year. And this year I was able to finally get the chance to watch it. And although it was a really great documentary and it was very informative, and I think a lot of people probably should watch it just because it helps understand where things are at. And I am a small clip in it, but in general, I didn't realize how much it would have an effect on me. Like I said, I thought I was good and everything was great, and I was growing in my new role as feeling good about myself and about where things were, and then it just kind of took a downhill spiral after watching that video. After that, I think less than a week later, there was a baby dedication at my church, which is, you know, so great. Like, I'm so glad we celebrate babies, but that really triggered something more in too. And that just, and then it was like every single thing I saw, you know, was something about someone having a kid or whatever. And it just really got hard. And I know that most of you don't really know me. I'm most of the time pretty contained with my emotions. My face can really give a lot of things away in general, and that's an unfortunate part about being a redheaded white person. But yeah, so most of the time I contain my emotions pretty well. I also have the chance of kind of being somewhat very empathetic and very emotional to things. And so during those times, I have a hard time showing other people my emotions. And so I'll seclude from a lot of things so that people won't feel like I'm a bother. And I feel like there are so many times I am upset and I have such a hard time that I can't reach out to somebody. And it's not because I don't want to. It's the same, for me, it feels like it's the same thing. I'm talking to them over and over and over again. Like, you know, I feel worthless. I feel like I failed. I feel like, you know, there's this, that, and the other. You know, I messed up, or I, you know, I'm having a hard time because I really do miss them and I thought I was okay and I'm not. And, you know, and all these things come up. And so I personally feel like I'm such a bother that I don't talk to people about it. I seclude, I stay at home, or I put on a brave face and fake it. And that's not always okay either. Because when I fake it, I do things that I probably would have never normally done. You know, I go out and just drink too much, or I go out and eat too much, you know, I like stuff my face a lot, and just coping things that that are bad habits, right? They're really bad habits. Until I realized that I was just, my PTSD, it just kicked in, right? The emotions of what I felt and where I was at kicked in. And that can happen. It says, I get all this stuff from WebMD, by the way, but it says that people who experience a traumatic event will have reactions that include shock, anger, nervousness, fear, and even guilt. And these reactions are common, and for the most part, for most people, they go away over time. However, for a person with PTSD, these feelings continue and even increase and become so strong that they keep the person from living a normal life. And people with PTSD have symptoms for longer than 1 month and cannot function as well before the event occurred. And I have really bad anxiety. Like, most of the time, my anxiety is under control. But there are times when it's not, when it's ultimately not under control, and I'm not okay. And this event of watching that video, then the baby dedication, and then it was the stillborn awareness time, and my parents were in town, and like one thing after the other, not only did that kick in, but my anxiety kicked in, right? And my own anxious thoughts and my own just craziness of life had me at a place where I faked it. Honestly, I would still go to things and I would still try, and I would overindulge in so many not even activities, just so much stuff, you know, that I didn't know how to fully deal with it. And it wasn't until I realized that that's where I was in my life, in my emotions, and what I need to do to get out. And I think sometimes it's harder for us to realize that's where we're at than for us to even ask for help. And although I realized I was there, I just couldn't, I had a hard time getting out of it. And so I think it's just understanding what to do. For me, it was taking some self-care time. And I know not everyone is like, has the same sort of thing. I would binge watch shows instead of praying or reading or, you know, doing anything that actually helped my brain cope with the emotions I was going through, like journaling. I think it's important to realize that when we get through this stage of life where our emotions are overwhelming, where maybe our PTSD kicks in, where maybe our anxiety or depression kicks in, that there's so many symptoms to start realizing so we can move forward. Reliving the experience, avoiding things, avoiding situations that remind you of it, you know, difficult sleeping, increase with your emotions, anger, etc. All of these things can come up all at one time or throughout the course of a time after you experience the traumatic portion of where you're at and where what happened comes through. Each person's understanding, and not really grief, but like emotions are different. For me, when children are hurt, when children are in danger, clearly this video, which I was unaware of, or anything like that, a lot of emotions get brought up for it. And for me, it's a lot of realizing I can't help, like the helplessness that's there. I couldn't do anything, so I blame myself. I couldn't help my kids, so I blame me. Because who else would you blame? There's no one else but me, right? In these situations, it goes back to where I was when they were born, you know, sitting there, not doing anything, reliving over and over the fact that they passed, the fact that my marriage totally took a dump, the fact that I did this or that or this. And these sorts of emotions just come rolling in, right? Like they just roll in, and you honestly don't want to take the time to deal with it. Either A, you don't have the time, or B, just don't want to. It is a lot. It is a lot, guys. Like, I get it. Out of all the people here, I get it. But it's time that you actually take the time to deal with it, you know? And I'm not saying, like, deal with it where, like, you avoid it. Just understand where your emotions are. Understand that this is where you feel and what it feels like for you. And that's okay. And I think just really taking and understanding what your real emotions are behind this and how you can help yourself in growing past this point. There's just so much emotions, I think, behind losing a child or losing someone in general that we can avoid. And it's just wanting to always avoid it. And sometimes we can't, you know? I don't know what your guys' coping mechanisms are. I feel like I cannot be the only one that feels this way when something crazy comes up. But definitely let me know. Let me know what your coping mechanisms in the positive way are. You know, sometimes it can be something so simple and we just forget. So after everything kind of settled down, I realized where I was in my own emotional state. And so what I did was I decided that I needed a day, which in my life sometimes is not really possible, but I took a night where I sat at home. I didn't really turn on the TV. Or if I did, it was just something that I'd seen over and let it play in my mind. Because sometimes silence really gets to me. And I decided I'd draw. I didn't have paints or anything, but I did have color pencils and crayons, and I just drew anything that I felt was necessary. The first thing that I drew was just a bunch of scribbles and just circles and like dark colors. The second thing actually kind of started to make sense and was a little bit more cathartic, where I started to do a sunrise and then added a person in there and then like all these random things and random colors, right? It was a lot of just random, what felt like randomnism. You know, I put a sun somewhere and just, you know, threw in whatever I felt. And after that, I realized what I really wanted was to have a real bright colored paper and, you know, just really go slow with it. And so I made something that I thought was really pretty. And I mean, I still have it because I think it's pretty, but it just allowed me to realize that I needed to let it out, and whatever that looked like. Sometimes journaling definitely helps me, but I think there are times when I don't even understand what to write or what to say. So I decided to draw. And like, I'm not saying I'm perfect or that totally healed. It helped. It helped me with my emotions. It helped me understand things. It helped me feel better. Some people need to do other things. Maybe they just need to dance it out or listen to music or read something intense for them or whatever it is. And I just gotta say, whatever helps you, please do it. Do not be stuck in this state of emotional distress, because that state can lead to an area or a place where it just isn't healthy. I realized, because of all the therapy and other things I've been doing, where I was at and what that looked like for me, and so that I could get out of the hard emotional state sooner. But I don't know what that looks like for you. If all of a sudden you feel like you're binge drinking or binge eating, or maybe you're binge watching something and you don't want to get out, and you just feel like you're down and out, and like no one loves you, or no one wants to talk to you, and you're just extra depressed or extra anxious about things that don't even make sense. Or maybe you just have all these emotions that you've been suppressing for months or years, and you can feel it bubbling out. You can feel it coming, but you won't let it. Take the time to deal with that. It is not healthy to keep on this stressful path. It is healthy to let it go. And I can give you some tips, but ultimately, I don't know what works for you. I just know that when it comes to losing the child, that is a post-traumatic stress that has happened that will continue to be in your life. Something else that happened this past month is that people talked about grief. And I'm totally okay with talking about grief and letting people know that clearly. But what I don't get about it is how we can totally minimize the fact that after a certain time, we just need to get over it and let it go. And I don't like that. I don't, because it doesn't mean that it's never going to come up again or something's not going to happen where you're going to remember and those emotions are going to be triggered. That's not a real thing. When someone passes, it's not like you never think about that person again. Or how about when like a soldier goes off to war and comes back and something triggers that? Like, it's not like they've never thought about it. Those are things that you just can't control. And when it comes to our grief and our stages and wherever, I think that we're gonna, we hold on to some of this for a long time. And I'm not saying we won't let go of certain parts and it won't get easier. I'm just saying that, especially when it comes to child loss, there's no forgetting. There's no way that we can just up and forget about anything like this that happened, because it's not true. The reality is that things are going to happen and we're going to start getting triggered again. And we just have to figure out the best way to start moving forward. Again, if you have any ways to help people or how you've been helped in situations where something got triggered in your emotions, please just write in the comments below or message me, and I can put together a list that helps people. But don't stay in this state. Don't stay in this state of emotions where you can't get out, because there's always help. Even if you think no one will talk to you, reach out to me. I'm always here, but there's always some help, and I just want you to be aware of that. If you have any other thoughts of what I should talk about next, or if I should bring someone on, definitely feel free to reach out. Outside of that, thanks so much for watching.